welcome to Everything Teams Phone Live. We've got an amazing episode lined up for you. I am excited to talk to you today. There we go. Welcome to season 2, episode 83 of Everything Teams Phone Live. Man, that's a cheesy, corny intro. But you know what? You listen to that for just saying, and you can't help but laugh. And it's okay that it's at us. It's fine. It's not with us typically. It's just at us, but it's okay. We'll be the butt of that joke for a little while. I'm all right with it. It's pretty funny. Brandon?
You know what though? I think it's going to grow on us. I really do. Unless we go force it to change, I think it'll grow on us.
It's one of those things that a lot of YouTubers and stuff like that kind of have like some sort of like awful kind of intro, right? Like I remember seeing my uncle's a doctor in South Texas, right? And he's got this beautification clinic. I don't know what you call a beautification clinic, but kind of Botox and all that good stuff, right? And his thing used to be like snaps. And I'm just like, no, he did not just snap every time. And it's like, boom. And I'm like, for real? Like, and he just did it every episode. And it was one of those things where you're like, I got to watch that again because it's so awful, but I feel like, and again, hats off to our marketing and creative team. It's not awful. It's just, it's quite embarrassing, but
that was our goal, Rick.
I think it's great. I mean, go back to episode 1 and we'd cringe big time, right? So,
or episode 3 or 4 where you weren't even on it. It was just me like dragging this thing along for 55 minutes.
Speaking to yourself, as Kanye West once said, it gets the people going, right? So.
There you go. All right. Well, listen, we've got a great show today. We're excited to introduce Luware. You may have seen Oli on our show before. Here at Momentum, we have an amazing partnership with Luware, and he brought along Jordan with him from Luware as well. We're excited to have both of them chat through all the updates and changes. Things are changing so fast in this industry. We got to keep up with it from a contact center perspective. It gets more and more important every single day. Brandon, how's your day going today? Is it getting cold in Denver yet? What are we January, February? What are we in now?
Well, the last cold wave is through. I was just telling these guys in the green room that it's typical Denver, right? Sunny. It's about 35 degrees out, but when it's sunny and dry, no humidity, that 35 actually is very mild, right? You can be out in a sweatshirt or a long sleeve and be comfortable. So it's a great day in Denver.
Yeah. I'm like 70 degrees in Scottsdale, so it's a lovely day.
Rub it in, why don't you?
Yeah. So, Bailey, how are you today, Bailey?
I'm doing good. How about you, Rick?
Excellent. We've got some rules, some housekeeping. What do we got going on today?
Yep, you guys know the drill. Season 2 of Everything Teams Phone Live is sponsored by Momentum, where we help businesses thrive with Microsoft Teams. Back to you guys with Luware, episode 83.
Thanks,
all right,
Bailey.
awesome. All right, Oli, Jordan, now you guys, it's a bit late for you guys. Yeah, it's like our last show last week. Our buddies from the UK hopped on a call with us on episode 81. The guys from McKinsey, and you guys, are you guys across the pond as well?
Yeah, so I'm based in London. If we're on the weather topic, it's been horrible here the last few weeks, as you'd expect. Just raining, cold, grey. Yeah, we're in the depths of it. Yeah, winter blues is setting in a little bit, but we're struggling through.
Jordan and Oli, I'm going to mention something here, and I probably shouldn't. It's probably too much information, but I'm going to say something about your weather. I think it was in December, and Brandon, you may recall this a couple of years ago. It was in December, I think, or maybe it was March. I don't remember which Cavella was at in London, but we were excited because we booked a penthouse. We booked a penthouse, and this place was a huge penthouse, and so we put a few people in there that were traveling to London for the Cavell event. And we booked this penthouse, and not knowing the area at the time. This is, several years ago. Not knowing the area at the time, we booked a penthouse in Whitechapel. Nothing against nothing against Whitechapel at all, but we booked it.
You see the smirks and smiling happening.
So we get to this penthouse, and we take the tour, and we're jet lagged, number one, already, because I remember the ground moving. we're X stories up, and I'm like, wow, is the building that tall where it's swaying a little bit? So no, it was just me, and I confirmed that I thought it was just me too. And I remember asking Brandon, do you feel this way? Brandon's like, I feel this way too. So I was like, is it the building? Anyway, come to find out it was jet lag. But I recall, though, it snowed there, and it was a time when that particular penthouse, the sliding door broke. And so the sliding door wouldn't close this much, and it was snowing and cold out in the UK, and we asked the Airbnb host, they got, can you guys do something about it? And they came over. Do you remember what they did, Brandon?
They just came over and grabbed a bunch of bath towels and shoved it into the door. Or and we could spend a whole episode talking about the disaster this Airbnb was. No, the heat barely worked. No, you got 5 seconds of hot water in the shower. It was March. It was March. We showed up. It was March. Stood outside for 2 hours waiting for the guy to show up to let us in. It was a whole disaster. But that was acquainted with winter in London.
That's right. That's right. What was that, Jordan?
Was it a 5-star review then for the Airbnb? Yeah.
Oh, that was a no review, Jordan. But that was it was a situation where if you don't do this, this will happen, right? One of those scenarios. But what was it was funny is that we were there for, boy, what was it, 3 or 4 days we were booked for? We cut it short. We're out to. See you later, everyone. We got to go. Yep. All right. Well, that was the penthouse story, and that's yes, related to your weather in London in March. It was quite chilly that trip. All right, gentlemen, welcome to the show. Lots of things happening in 2025. 2025 seems to be the year that communications is going to change with AI. And I guess, Oli, I'd love to have you just explain what Luware is and really why it's different than the typical contact centers out there, because I think the enterprise guys know a nice in contact. They know a 5.9s. They know the 8x8 guys. You know the big contact center guys that are sitting out there. And then you think about Microsoft Teams. You think about Teams. You're like, I don't feel like that's a contact center. It's a unified communication platform, collaboration platform. But you don't think of it as a contact center. You guys went and made it a contact center. If you can give us some context around that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as you said, Rick, you've got those traditional CCaaS players on the market. But what we always have done at Luware is essentially use the Microsoft stack. So that was originally Skype for Business, now obviously Teams, and then turn that into a fully fledged customer service, customer experience platform. So we have a product called Nimbus. So Nimbus is a routing, reporting, CRM integration platform for Microsoft Teams users. So our philosophy is to use what the Microsoft stack gives us, but turn that into a fully fledged contact center and customer experience platform. And when you relate that to AI, I think you mentioned it there, 2025 is the year for AI. I think for the last couple of years, the contact center industry has kind of been working out, okay, what do we do with this new technology? And now I think we're at the stage where we actually have some tangible use cases that we can bring to customers. And Luware, we're going to be leveraging primarily what Microsoft is building in their AI stack. So tools like Copilot Studio, Azure AI Studio, and utilizing that technology and then blending that into our solution.
That's excellent. Excellent.
And Oli, and I know we'll probably get into more use case examples later, but as you guys talk and plan for the AI, what's the conversation around, privacy and data compliance? Because I think that's a huge topic in the industry, regardless of whether it's contact center or not, is where is my data at? And how do you address it? How are you guys going to address that?
Yeah, it's massive, and this is where the kind of the sales process goes into implementation. And I think it's very easy, or you can pitch AI solutions and we can pitch use cases, but then when it actually comes to implementing these, data privacy, CISOs, information security teams, they're going to be at the forefront of that, because at the end of the day, what the AI is doing is it's digging into internal knowledge bases, internal databases, and then pushing that information out to their customers. So I think one of the key reasons for going down that Microsoft route is if an organization is already going through that process of data privacy, information security, kind of internal processes for Copilot 365, then if they use that for the contact center, they won't have to do that process twice. I think if you start using AI from 3 or 4 different vendors, then you're going to have to go through all of those processes, which can be pretty long-winded, again and again. But if you stay in the Microsoft stack, then hopefully you'll only have to do that once, or maybe some minor adjustments to use it in different areas.
And I imagine leveraging the Microsoft ecosystem, Luware is going to be able to lean on the kind of the data wall gardens, if you will, that Microsoft is already providing around that compliance for data security and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're essentially saying it's a bit like Power Automate or even Teams. That data or those interactions remain in your Microsoft environment. Okay, so we're not actually handling the customer data there as Luware. That stays in your Microsoft environment, and therefore whatever data privacy regulations that you've got set up with Microsoft there will still apply. So it does make that process of actually implementing some of these easier. Yes, you still need to go through those data privacy processes with Copilot, but hopefully you can do that once, and that will tick off a whole load of use cases, and you won't need to do that tedious task again.
Yeah. I think it's super critical. I'm going to give one real world example. Rick, you saw this. You don't know where I'm going, but you saw it. Of why I bring this up kind of as the first piece of the conversation before we dive in, because if you can't successfully show the customer that their data is in a container, if you will, that is secure and compliant for them and only them, you're never going to sell the product. And Rick and I were evaluating a potential AI platform for various things, and so we got to the topic of, hey, can you show us how you secure your customers' data? And they pulled up and they were sharing their screen, and they showed, well, look, I put a rule in the AI bot and the rule was just really, it just was a human type form of, hey bot, please don't leak my data into the general ecosystem. And I'm like, that doesn't give an organization any confidence whatsoever that just because you told the bot to keep it private, we all know AI hallucinates. And so again, going back to that importance of, if Luware can come up with that story around data compliance and privacy, it's slam dunk, in my opinion.
And we can have a look at Copilot Studio in a moment, but essentially Copilot Studio is integrated into the rest of your Microsoft stack. So if you want to build a Copilot Studio bot and say, only look at the files in this SharePoint location, then you can be very specific around the data that it's going to look at. First of all, that data is already in your Microsoft environment, structured. Hopefully the access to that is already sorted. And then you're essentially saying, okay, I want to build a bot based on the data here in this specific SharePoint location, or this specific PDF, or these specific resources. And if those resources are already in your environment, then you'd hope that would tick off a lot of those compliance and data privacy regulations.
Yeah, it kind of tracks along with our whole approach, Brandon. When we talk about, compliance recording, texting, it's like, it's your data. We're going to give it to you. That's yours. You run with it. Like, I don't want to hold it. I don't want to store it. I don't even want it in, I don't want anything to do with it. So here, let's find an elegant way to put it in your environment. Real quick, I do want to say, Jordan, you've been in the space for a little bit, selling different contact center solutions, and welcome to the show. You're new to Luware. I don't know how new you are to Luware. How new are you, Jordan, to Luware?
Oh, I'm a Luware veteran. I'm in week 2.
Week 2. Well, having been in the space, though, you may have an opinion. Like, I'm sure you've seen the platform. You've you probably understand the platform because you've been doing this a little bit. What's your initial immediate take on the platform?
Yeah.
And don't worry that Oli's right there.
It's not a
it's okay.
evaluation.
It's not at all.
No, I've been pretty open and honest and transparent about my thoughts. I knew of Luware coming in anyway because we were coming up against Luware an awful lot at my previous employer. There was 3 things that I was particularly impressed by with Nimbus. The first piece I was really, really impressed by is that Nimbus is true SaaS in its purest form. And the litmus test for SaaS typically is, can you be up and running in under an hour? The answer with Nimbus is absolutely yes, you can be up and running within an hour. That was the first thing that I was blown away by coming in, seeing that. The second thing I was really impressed by was the fact that Nimbus doesn't discriminate based on how that call is coming in, whether that's direct routing, operator connect, calling plans. It doesn't discriminate. That was one of the things that I've seen amongst other teams' contact centers where, getting a POC up and running without a third-party SBC can be really, really challenging. I think that speaks to the fact that we're using the extend model. So those 2 things were the main things. And the third thing that I found was, again, I think this speaks to the fact that we're using the extend model, but having integrations with CRMs and databases and ticketing systems out of the box. Lots of teams' contact centers will say, we integrate with CRMs. And I think there is absolutely some truth in that. But I think when you dig a little bit deeper, you find that actually it takes a bit of development work and other bits and pieces. The thing I found with Nimbus, even coming in week 2, is that we are truly integrating with those CRMs out of the box. I've been really, really impressed by that.
That's awesome, Jordan. Thanks for the breakdown. I think a couple of things you said are pretty important there. That number 1, it doesn't discriminate. I like let's go with this. Number 1, Oli, 1 hour. I'm gonna basically we'll work with your service delivery group now because we've got some new expectations now. So we're with appreciate that, Jordan. Let's talk about not discriminating on how the call gets inbound. How does that interaction get inbound? Let's talk about that a little bit. And you may even have a slide that shows something like that. Do you, Oli?
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. I'll let Jordan kind of talk through it though. As you brought it up, let me just share the screen, and then we'll go from there. So as Jordan mentioned, we're using that extend architecture, but Jordan, I'll let you talk through this.
Yeah, do you want to pop that up on screen?
There we go.
Yeah, let me just. Perfect. Yeah. So lots of the organizations that are doing Teams contact center, you actually find that what they're using is the connect model. So that's kind of they're SIP trunking in and using. Oli, have you got the slide? Yeah. So you can see there's kind of third-party SBC involved, and that can cause issues with deployments. If, for example, if you're not, as an example, I was working for an SBC provider who are doing Teams contact center. Really, really nice and easy when you're overlaying that on top of your own SBC. But when you're trying to overlay that on top of a third-party SBC, there is no way on God's green earth that you're going to be up and running within an hour. It is possible on your own SBC, but when you start adding in third parties and when it's not your own SBC, that's when it causes real issues. That's one of the things that I've been most impressed by with the extend model. We're existing within Teams using the Graph API. So when that call goes into Teams, it stays in Teams and it exists in Teams thereafter natively. That's the big difference, and it's so powerful because it opens up a whole plethora of opportunities to then be using the Microsoft tech stack via Power Automate, Power Connect. So that's been the big thing that I found that's been most impressive to me. It's just the architecture that's underneath Nimbus.
Yeah, and we look at it the same way from a telco perspective. We look at this and we go, it's so nice to not, hairpin from something to another platform, right? And then back to Teams as an example. This is, we love the idea of, here's our dial tone as clean as it gets right into your team's ecosystem as a client or customer, and your software sits in the tenant, manipulating the calls, doing the call manipulation, doing the treatment, whatever it may be, right in the customer's tenant. And that's nice because, again, going back to that data privacy stuff we were talking about earlier, you don't have your data pinging around, two different platforms. It's coming into the Microsoft ecosystem and staying in the Microsoft ecosystem.
Rick, you know what my favorite thing is about this story here, and we, in a roundabout way, not specifically to Luware, saw this. I think it was yesterday talking to a bank, of being able to explain to a customer, because their biggest concern is, what do I have to do? What needs to change on my side? How do I need to accommodate the team's environment to make this other service work? And my favorite part is when that light bulb finally goes off and you tell them, nothing, this just lays over your existing environment and there's nothing you need to do. Watching them, like almost watching that stress or that burden come off their shoulders, and they actually start to smile, going, and sometimes some of them will literally tell us, oh my goodness, you just made my life so much easier. And then it's like, all right, now go tell the business to do it.
It's anybody who's worked in telecoms would have heard the solution of, just route that via a SIP trunk over SBC. And people say it like you can do it like that. But as soon as you have to start routing things via an SBC over additional SIP trunks, that's when the can of worms open, and you're just in for a whole world of complexity.
Sorry, Ali, I was just going to say that the problem with that is you then have to start liaising with people who perhaps don't have familiarity with the solution. You are truly engaging people who are coming into this completely alien, and with the best will in the world, they could really, really want to help and make this work, but they're coming into it completely blind, completely alien to them. They don't know the solution, and you'd be surprised at how many complications it can cause.
If I'm just going to ask the question, if it can be done in an hour. Now, Oli, I've seen lots and lots of videos, Oli, of you deploying a solution. Is it do you have a record? And Jordan, where are you at with this from a timing perspective? Like, I'm just curious, because Oli, is it yours like 15 minutes or 12 minutes, or what's yours, Oli?
It was definitely not me. It was people much smarter than me, like proper engineers rather than just blaggy salespeople. But it's a couple of guys on our team did it in 23 minutes from a completely blank tenant. And they had a call center queue up and running with reporting within 23 minutes. So and that's the world record if anyone can beat it.
I'll speak firsthand, Rick, to defend Luware. I'm not going to say I did it in 23 minutes. Maybe I did. I don't know. I wasn't timing. But this goes back to what, 2021 era, maybe. I can't remember when we first entered the partnership with you guys. But you guys kind of gave me okay, here's the building blocks, go do it. You guys got me set up and off we went. And I can attest to, I don't think it took an hour, right? It was go grant my permissions, my consent, go assign the phone number to the resource account that's going to be my main contact center. And again, probably sub 60 minutes, we were up routing basic contact center call flows through Luware on our environment.
The way the area as well, where obviously that's great in live deployments, but if a customer wants to go on a POC, Brandon, I know I pinged you last week and I was like, okay, we got this customer we're working on, a Momentum customer. I think they're an existing account. They want to test the solution before going into their own environment. You gave them access to your demo environment, and I think one of your colleagues within like half an hour or something,
yep.
He came back and basically said, yeah, the user account's there, the customer has it, and they're using it basically. So POCs, trialing, it's also really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
What does the platform look like? I don't know if someone has the platform sort of up and available, but what does that look like? So when an organization is sitting in Microsoft Teams and we're talking, they've got 50 contact center agents, and what's the Luware sweet spot? Like, I'm curious because of some organizations have contact centers that's just part of their everyday business, and they've got 50, 60 people, and then you've got contact center companies that are really just built around this is our main source of source of revenue, and we've got a massive, 300, 400, 500 user sort of base of contact center employees or agents. What's the sweet spot for Luware that you guys find? And I'm sure you guys do the range, but what do you guys typically do?
Yeah, I'll give you the kind of typical sales answer of kind of both of those scenarios, but in reality, it's not really dictated by the size or even by the vertical or sector. I'd say it's more with how entrenched they are in Teams and the Microsoft ecosystem. So any organization that really truly wants to use Teams as their sole communication platform, then that's really our sweet spot. That's where they really see the value of having everything in Teams. And Nimbus, if you haven't seen it, it just sits as an app within Teams here. So you can pop this out. I can see my dashboards. I can see my queues. I can go and have a look at things like live views, which will help me kind of keep track of real-time KPIs. Everything you'd expect from kind of contact center dashboards. So that's all natively within the app. So here I can see real-time call stats, how many agents we have available, all natively within Teams. But what I wanted to kind of show you guys is pivoting back to that AI piece is how we're using Copilot in Nimbus and how we're planning to continue to use that. So what we built out here is some bots in Copilot Studio. So within Copilot Studio, we essentially build out these different bots, and each of these bots is designed to have a specialism. So we've got kind of like Salesforce bots, knowledge base bots, but here our pre-sales team built an alpine hiking bot. So the idea here is that this bot can help customers plan a hiking holiday. This was done pretty easily. This probably isn't great from a data privacy perspective, or because we've just listed the knowledge base to be kind of 10 public websites. These are basically just tourism websites about hiking and in the Alps. But it's really easy to add a knowledge base. So we can add public websites, we can add SharePoint links, or we can have connectors with our Dataverse connector there. So that can connect into things like CRMs and other databases. So we can just choose specific SharePoint resources or just add public websites. That might be my own website. So we added about 10 of these websites here. These are already ready for use. We can also build kind of topics here. So we can build specific kind of conversational pieces around how we want it to handle greetings, goodbyes, how we want it to create an itinerary. So we can kind of hone that bot there with those specific topics that we know the bot is going to be speaking to customers about. And then the way that we bring this into Nimbus is essentially via a chat widget on a customer's website. So this would just sit on a customer's website. We can take details here. So we can take name, email. We can then use these parameters in the routing. And then as a customer, I can start speaking to the bot with this message here. So I can say, please help me plan a hiking holiday in the Alps. Okay, we can accept the privacy policy, so we can link that privacy policy there. And then that will essentially send that off to the AI bot. We can see here that that's AI bot is essentially green and it's available. And then it will start with its automated responses. So it's basically saying, okay, this is your question. It's going to get an answer to that question. And if I was to go to my contact center now, we would essentially be able to see this interaction in that contact center queue. So I can see that chat now. If I was a supervisor looking at it, it's in that IVR state. That's kind of what we related to in the old voice contact center world. So that's in the IVR state. If we go back to our
hold on, Oli, I got to stop you for just a second. I think that's super cool. Like the ability to track, if there's someone that's engaged right now, right? And they're chatting away with our AI chatbot that we've got there, and you've got the contact center sort of reporting to go real time. Hey, you've got 37 people sitting in this IVR state, working through learning from your bot, engaging with your organization. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's super cool. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's just we want the contact center to be totally agnostic of the modality, right? So just like you would want to have reporting on how many people are sitting in your voice IVR, it's the same concept with chat, right? It's useful to know how many people go into your IVR and then how many people go to the queue, how many people don't get handled by agents. All of those same KPIs you'd expect from a voice contact center, we want to apply that to other modalities like chat and email and social media. So here the AI bot is essentially got some answers for me. So it's saying, for a hiking holiday in the Alps, you have some good options here. So it's basically asking me to choose where I want to go. So I'm going to say, please plan an itinerary for the Swiss Alps. Okay. So let's go to the Swiss Alps. Again, it will go do its thing. It will retrieve some information from those knowledge bases around the Swiss Alps. Again, we're going to stay in the IVR state. So we'll let that do its thing. If I remind you that that's looking at these websites here that we added to our knowledge base for Copilot. So that could be looking at internal knowledge bases there, or CRMs if we wanted it to. And what it's done here is it's then provided me an itinerary. So arrival here, day 2 hiking here, and I could continue chatting with that. Maybe I want it to be longer. Maybe I want to say specific hotels. At some point, though, as we all know, the bot might not be able to give me the answer I want. So I'm going to say, please, can I speak to an agent? Okay, I'm sure everybody's used some sort of AI bot has asked this question at some point, right? It gets to a certain point, and I think this is key for customer experience because it's all very well and good having AI do the easy work, but if you can't seamlessly hand off to an agent, then that customer experience is going to fall down at that point. So what we've done there is it says, looks like we want to speak to an agent. Okay, so it's then going to transfer to an agent. If we look in our queue now, it's now sitting in the queue. So it's gone from IVR to queue. And as an agent, we can now answer or decline that interaction in our Nimbus assistant. So this assistant here is going to pop up on top of whatever else we're doing. And just like a call, I can accept or decline that as an agent. So I've accepted that. When I click open chat here, we're going to use the Teams chat to respond to this customer on the website. We are obviously a Teams first contact center. Chat is a native part of Teams. So for us, it made total sense for the agents to use the Teams native chat to actually handle that interaction. There's no new chat widget. If the agent is sitting on their sofa at home, they can just answer this via the Teams mobile app. So when I respond here, and I'm going to put myself as an agent on the left-hand side, and I'm going to put the customer on the website on the right-hand side here, I can now just chat back and forth in Teams to the customer on the website. So now I've got a seamless chat real time. As an agent, I'm not having to go to any other communication platform. I'm just sitting in Teams, but the customer doesn't know they're connected to someone in Teams. They're just connected to someone via the web chat here on the website.
And all while Nimbus is tracking that channel. So I assume now it's showing that it's being handled by you. It's connected that way. You know, like let's say there's SLAs set up. Let's say you as the agent forget to go back to your chat. I assume then Nimbus has a way to like trigger SLAs to say, hey, you need to go back and finish this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do timeouts, so we can do inactivity timeouts. If I was then looking at the statistics dashboard for this service, the AI chat service, we've got our average queue times, our average connected times, our SLAs. We can see how many people are hanging up, how many are being transferred, being accepted. We can see the user statistics, right? So we can see that Ugir is in the last 30 days, he's ignored 10 chat messages, right? So we might tap him on the shoulder and go, why do you hate chat so much? Why are you ignoring them? So all of that typical contact center tracking and reporting, we can get across any of those modalities. And the other thing that Nimbus Assistant gives us here, so let's just go full view into our agent view here. That Nimbus Assistant is going to basically help us give us some context as to what that AI was talking about. So it's going to tell us things like, it can summarize the conversation. So it can give us some prompts as to what it spoke to the AI about. and then we can obviously use that in the connected chat there.
So I'm going to say something really quickly. This is I love the seamless escalation, right? So you know to a person now you expect seamless if you go to Expedia as an example and you're chatting with someone and you're like you stop the bot process and you're like I need to speak to an agent please and they get you an agent right there and you're in your portal. What's unique about this to me is the back end for you guys. You're sitting in Teams and what's unique to me is you're just in Teams. I really love the fact that you're just in a normal Teams chat. What you said, I think, is really important is I can be sitting on the sofa on my mobile device, helping a customer out, not having a complex platform to log into. I'm just sitting in Teams having a conversation with someone that's sitting on the website right now looking for help, and I can help them wherever I'm at. And that seamless escalation, again, with you putting that information on what their responses were, so I can see kind of the historical sort of discussion points. All this is so good for customer care, sales. Like this is all the way that you guys have this implemented is pretty darn clean and elegant for me. I like this a lot, guys.
Good. Yeah, I mean, keeping it in Teams is the name of the game, right? And Teams chat is obviously an integral part of Teams. So that seemed like the really obvious place to put the user experience. We could have obviously built out our own chat interface within the app, but why not use Teams that's already built that and people are used to using?
Yeah, is the queue that you're using, is it a Luware queue so that you can pull, or a Nimbus queue so you can pull the stats, or is it going into a chat team, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's just a Nimbus service, right? So we see the real-time stats, we can see the historical stats, and all Nimbus services are created with workflows. So if I go into my workflow editor here, I can build out voice workflows, chat workflows, or email workflows. So for example, if I wanted to build out a chat workflow, I can just give it a name, and then we can start building out the bit before it gets to the queue. So we can build out things like opening hours. So we might want this chat to just go to the AI when we're closed and then have the option to go to agents when we're open. So we can build out our opening hours. We can also build out those kind of initial messages there. So here we can say, hi, customer display name. So this is a parameter that we're taking from those initial inputs that they put in. So we can basically greet them by name because we have that information from when they started the chat. And we can even pull out other information like, for example, their order delivery date or their order state, or if they're a VIP, we could give them some extra information there. So not only are we using AI to kind of give or to interact with the customers, if they've got things in their CRM that we want to deliver to the customers, like things like delivery dates, order due dates, we can pull that out and put those into the messages here. So we might basically ask them, are you talking to us about your delivery date? And if they say yes, we can say your order is due on, and then just pull a custom parameter here, and then pull that straight out of the CRM, and then basically give that back to them in a message. So this workflow editor makes it really easy to control that routing there before we actually deliver it to a queue. Okay, so when we deliver it to a queue, that just goes to the queue, and then there's a timeout attached to that queue from there.
Man, that's pretty cool.
I think the cool thing here is it's just, it's the whole omni-channel buzzword, right? It's just another workflow within the contact center that logically is flowing kind of in the same way any other channel would flow.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to show you guys a sneak peek of something, and I might get a slap on the wrist from the product team for doing this, but we're going to go for it. And if they have watched this far, then kudos to them. So,
what are you saying, Oli? Are we boring your product people?
I don't know. I'd be impressed if they're.
It's late in the UK, Brandon. It's late in the UK. It's after hours.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Not the fact that it's boring. So at the moment, we're bringing these Copilot interactions through as a parameter in Power Automate. Okay, what we will be releasing in a few months' time is basically an activity here which will bring this directly into the workflow. So we are basically building what we call virtual users in the workflow. So that Copilot bot that you saw there, the Alpine hiking bot, will then go directly into your workflow. So we'll give this a name like Alpine hiking virtual user, and then you'll be able to basically send interactions directly to that virtual AI user directly in the workflow. So at the moment we're doing that. We're handing that off to Copilot with Power Automate, which is a little bit, there's a few steps involved there, but we're going to be able to do that directly in the workflow. So you'll just be able to hand that over to John, who might be your specialist in product A. And then if we hand it over to Jack, he might be a specialist in a different area. So we can have these different virtual users. And I think that's going to be a big step when we release that in the workflows.
I think that's super cool because, having your agents work alongside you, right? I think is a concept that's I think going to take hold, right? If you can, because you think about this, you've got your first interaction sometimes is handled up front by, let's say, AI. How can I route your chat? How can I route your call? Whatever it may be, right? So that first interaction is handled by chat. But let's just say it's not. Let's say it gets past that, but then you've got a specialist subject that you want, that this person or this chat, this AI sort of bot has, and you could potentially offload some of your ongoing support, right? Maybe it started out with an AI orchestrator who got the call or the chat to you, and you're having that discussion, and they do want some detailed information. You could offload that as an example to some AI bot that can handle that specific sort of task or that specific granular process. I mean, just like in the days when we're taking credit cards as an example over the phone, right? It's like, here, let me just send you over to a credit card bot and take that credit card and done.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting concept of, I think, as you said, Rick, most people are viewing AI as the preliminary bit and then it being handed to a human agent once the AI can't do it anymore. But actually, I think we'll get to a point pretty quickly where it's humans handing off to AI to either finish that, or if you have special bots that are built with certain knowledge bases, you get to a point where that bot might be better off handling the query than a customer service agent. So being able to hand back to an AI service, I think, is something we're going to see more of, and having the flexibility to build a service built on AI and just for an agent to actually make the transfer over, I think is something that most people aren't probably thinking of right now. But as Copilot and as AI gathers pace, I think we're going to see that more handing back off to an AI bot.
I'm gonna just real quick. I think this is pretty cool. I'm gonna just explore this sort of credit card thing for just a minute, because to me, if I think about this, you go, hey, I need to make a payment. Let's say you shut off some service and I need to get it turned back on, right? Like something like that, right? And somebody calls in, they say, well, yeah, we can see your payments, super late. That's why we turned your phone service off, as an example, right? Or a different service, your power, whatever it may be. So you could literally send that person over to the credit card bot, who could, by the way, walk them through much nicer and in much more sort of complete sentences than your typical contact center person, because they're like, I feel like if you did that, it's like, yeah, you just need to take a credit card. And I've been on the phone where basically they said, we're going to send you over, and they're going to be right there waiting with you, right? But not listening to it. They're sitting there waiting. You go over to handle the payments handled through the third party sort of automation, but that agent is still sitting there waiting, right? Waiting. When you could have somebody go, okay, great, now I just need your credit card. I put your credit now, if you your expiration date, kind of walk you through the inputs that you need to do as a consumer. Maybe it's all voice activated. Give me your numbers, give me this, and you get through that credit card transaction. And once you pay that and it's authorized, you've got an automatic flow that can kick back in and just go ahead and execute that turn up of the service, or that the resuming of the service, right? The reactivation of the service. All that can be done in a delightful manner without the actual human agent doing anything anymore, except realizing, hey, we need to make a payment because it is turned off, and somebody wanted to speak to somebody because they got to tell you, hey, I'm turned off right now and I really need you to turn it back on right now. And we're like, cool, you just make that payment right now and we'll get you turned back on. And that's a really cool, I think that's a really, you're not thinking of it in that scenario, just like you said, you're not thinking of it in support of, but that's a whole process that you've now shaved 5 minutes off of that live agent's sort of workload, having it all done automatically, and then, activating it another couple of minutes, right? Cool concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if we go back to Microsoft ecosystem, okay, we will, this will support in the future other AI solutions. So you'll be able to essentially bring your own bot. But we're doing it with Copilot first. And yeah, we expect and we hope this will be the first kind of native Copilot contact center integration. So bringing Copilot natively into a contact center workflow, which we're really excited about.
What I think is go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I was going to say, and Oli and Jordan, either one can chime in on this. I assume Luware, being I'll call you a multinational company, right? You've got locations in multiple countries. I assume, and Rick and I see this all the time. We get the question asked, can it do translation services, right? I think that's a forefront use case that I think AI could solve for very rapidly for businesses that are multinational or their customer base is multinational. Rick and I just got asked that yesterday. Can you do real-time translation service to simplify my customer's workflow? What's the temperature on that around AI services with Luware?
Yes, so with translation, because we're using Teams for calling, we can use all the translation tools that you have in Teams Phone and Teams Meetings. So we've actually tested this with a couple of customers. The real-time translation in Teams is already it's really good. So because we're just delivering things over Teams calls, then we can just utilize that real-time translation. I think when we're talking about AI and talking to bots, what's important from a multinational perspective is making sure the speech recognizer, which is the underlying technology in Azure that is doing that speech recognition, that making sure that is able to handle different languages. Now, being Swiss and there being a few different dialects in Switzerland, we were quite an interesting use case internally for that because the guys started testing it in Swiss German, which it definitely handled. And Swiss German is quite a unique style of German, let's put it that way. So Azure and Microsoft have done a good job there in the speech recognition services, which drives all of that kind of AI and voice bots.
Jordan, what's your thoughts on your 2 weeks in? And again, you've seen and sold different contact center platform solutions, like from a robust sort of kind of feature set perspective. Is it very different than other platforms out there, or mildly different? What do you think?
Look, it's subjective. I think the thing with Nimbus that I've been really impressed by is that it's one product, but there's 3 flavors, and those 3 flavors answer various different use cases, right? So you've got attendant console at one end, which is answering that kind of receptionist use case. You've then got informal contact center in the middle. So kind of that Teams on steroids, that Teams but better kind of flavor. And then you've got that use case right at the end for omnichannel. Having one product that can answer multiple use cases in this space is really, really important, because you go and take a look at lots of Teams contact centers and they're answering either right up here at the top end, or they're answering right up here at the bottom end, where we go kind of Teams but better here, and we go fully fledged omni-channel at the top. What Nimbus does really, really well is it covers kind of those 3 use cases, that Teams but better, that attendant console at the bottom end, and then fully fledged contact center at the top end. That's what I really like about Nimbus, is you can answer multiple use cases with just one product.
I agree with you. It is a very clean solution, and it is just that one product that's all you need. I mean, and you make it, Luware breaks it down and makes it really simple for you to go, here's what you need to accomplish everything that you need. Right? It's all right here. That's pretty cool.
I have a question for Rick and Brandon. Obviously, I'm going to switch the tables here a little bit. I know it's your show, but obviously the US is a different market to what we're seeing in Europe. Where would you say you guys are at in that Teams journey in the US? I know you guys have got still a lot of on-prem customers over there. You've got some customers that are on platforms like Broadsoft. Where are you kind of at in that transition to Teams? What do you guys say?
I think as a country, and Brandon may have a different opinion. He can share his. I think as a country, I think we saw the first wave of Teams organizations adopt it. They were the enterprise, right? So the enterprise guys again, because Microsoft's got an amazing field sales team that really has a beat on the larger organizations. In the right now, I feel like the SME is really starting to kind of pick up some momentum in the adoption stage. And then you've got this massive SMB market. And I say SMB, but there's, the SMB is, 800 users and below. So the SMB is a pretty significant business, right? There's a lot of them out there in the US. And I think they're the ones who are starting to kind of pick up Teams. I think you've got a camp that's like, anti-Microsoft as an example. And then you've got a camp that's like, they're sort of Google fans, or they're all in on Teams, right? So you've got this, this anti and then all in. I think what you're going to find coming up this year is that the realization, I think, of organizations who are looking at becoming competitive or being more competitive in their space and looking for a leg up as a competitor in their space, they're going to have to look to AI to really be able to adopt efficiencies in process that drive real significant change, whether that be in sales or operations or support, whatever it may be. But I think what they're going to find, and this is the message that we've got going out, Oli, is that if you don't capture your conversations in a collaboration platform, then you're missing the opportunity to understand your company's data and to understand your company's process as it relates to potentially the most significant medium that your customers and or employees are communicating on. So if you don't capture your voice, your calls in totality, that's like a something about Mary comment, totality, and in like its entirety, then you're missing the opportunity to go, here's a process I can automate. Here's a process I can front end with AI. Here's a process I can streamline with AI or automation, right? So you're missing that opportunity. So you must, and I think this is going to catch on in 25. You must be in a platform that is efficient at capturing every single interaction. If you don't, you're going to be left behind as an organization. And I will tell you that I think the organizations that are talking AI right now are mostly enterprise and tech, right? Those are the organizations talking AI right now. There's a massive amount of businesses in the space that are not looking at that just yet, or haven't really wrapped their head around it. And they look at ChatGPT as maybe another Google as an example. It's like, you can ask it some questions. It helped me write something, or, something like that. And they're not understanding the coming wave, to quote, is it Mustafa's, I forget his last name, his book, the CEO of Microsoft's AI division. He wrote a book called Coming Wave. It's pretty interesting. They're not in that space, in that headspace just yet. And I think what we're seeing is the momentum start to pick up for the rest of the businesses that aren't enterprise and tech. I think it's starting to gain steam. We have a significant base of customers that are still on-prem. I think 40% or so of our businesses are still on-prem in the US. That's a significant amount of users that are sitting on Cisco's and Avaya still, and then a whole host of those smaller platforms that are since gone, the ShoreTels of the world, those sorts of things that they're looking at replacing right now. Don't forget the typical telephone system that was deployed before Cloud PBX, lasted for 20 plus years, right, in an organization. And I think you've seen the first wave of the migrations, and now what you're seeing is that second wave of organizations that have adopted cloud telephony in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they bought 8x8 or RingCentral or Momentum or my former company G12. They bought those cloud platforms, right? But now you see the consolidation of the platforms going, hey, there's Zoom, there's Teams, there's WebEx, right? There's other platforms out there. Google's starting to kind of put together an offering that's interesting. Amazon's got their contact center platform as an example. That's interesting. So I think there's a huge opportunity in this space that we're going to start to see rapid adoption, and it all depends on how easy organizations make it, right? How easy do we make it at Momentum? That's a massive sort of bogey for us in 2025 is we want this to be, as I hate this word, but I'm going to say it, frictionless as possible to do business with us, right? It's like, how can we make this experience frictionless for you to onboard into Teams? Because that's the first step. They're not buying Luware first, right? They're buying Teams first as an organization. The beautiful thing is that 320 million subscribers out there use Teams on a daily basis, whether it's chat or voice at this point, but they use it already. So it's not some, you're not going out there going, let me sell you Momentum phone service. It's like, let me sell you Teams phone service. Okay, we make it better because we can add fill the gaps. We can fill the gaps for those solutions. So, Oli, I hope that answers your question. Long-winded, I know, but Brandon,
it's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to probably go into depth on synopsis, right? I think there's a lot of reasons that the journey maybe looks different in the U.S. as it does in Europe. I mean, you can look at the consumer side and look at how U.S. just culturally we decide not to adopt things, right? Like WhatsApp, we really don't adopt that. I think. When you're talking about Microsoft, I think the realization is there. The adoption has already taken place. We see that, right? Enterprises are adopting it. The SMB and the mid-markets are really starting to ramp up in that adoption. And I think what companies like Luware are going to see and realize is the wave of adoption that's going to come, 3 to 4 years down the road, as these companies are, in America, we still have this mindset of whether it's brand loyalty, right? You got the Apple brand loyalty of iMessage and this and that from a consumer basis. In the contact center world, there's a lot of brand loyalty to the big boys like Avaya, RingCentral, 8x8, all Genesis, whoever. And these customers maybe are locked into those contracts. I have conversations with customers all day long that tell me, oh man, I didn't know we could do Teams Contact Center, but oh man, I just signed it. I just re-upped for a 3 or 5 year contract with Five9s, and now they're locked, right? They can't make that adoption decision now because it's, well, I'll come back to you in 3 years and start to talk to you guys about it. So I think Luware, as you guys look to penetrate the U.S. market, which I know you guys are, even yourselves bringing people into North America. From an org perspective, I think what you're going to start to see is the Teams adoption, or that unified collaboration platform adoption, has already happened. Now it's, riding the wave of when contracts come up for expiration, companies are starting to put their eyes on, oh, I can bring contact center into Teams. And I think that's going to accelerate year over year as we move forward.
Yeah, that initial wave of moving to Teams because of the pandemic, people probably kept their contact centers separate, right? Mm-hmm. Because that was too big a job to do remotely. I mean, moving voice to Teams in the pandemic is pretty easier than moving a contact center to Teams. But as you said, that was kind of 2-3 years ago. So we're going to see those coming up and coming back into the market.
And if you want my opinion, this is just an opinion. Take it for whatever it's worth. Wink, wink, wink. Where Luware and really any contact center should also be focused is in the BPO space, right? How do you get your product into a BPO partnership? Because a lot of times, especially in the US, big enterprises, they don't even want to deal with the contact center piece. They just want to outsource it. And so I think another way that a company like Luware could go get mass adoption is starting those relationships in the BPO space to say, hey, I know your customers are talking about Teams first. Here's a proposition that's a value add for you guys as a BPO.
Yeah. No, we do have a couple of outsourced kind of contact centers in the UK, but it's, as you say, those are the good ones to get into because that's their bread and butter. And that's what they live and breathe. Good.
Can I dive into something really technical for just a second, guys? I know we're hitting the top of the hour, so I'm just going to ask one more. I'm just super curious. Chat goes from the website to a call, a queue, a Nimbus queue as an example, because you put the rules around it in the queue. And in that queue, then essentially the extension of that queue, instead of being a phone, is a Teams chat. Is that man, that's cool.
And the technology there is power, right? It's a zero communication services. So you're going to start hearing this power model. I mean, we're thinking that it's going to be certified by Microsoft very soon, and that's the kind of third way of integrating with Teams that's currently uncertified. But essentially, that uses, instead of the Graph API, that uses Azure Communication Services to deliver all of its interactions. So we're already using that. The way that we deliver that chat in Teams is using Azure Communication Services, and we're doing the same for video. So that's already using part of that power model. What we're planning to do when it's certified for voice is use power for our voice calls as well, which will allow us to, instead of using Teams as an endpoint, we can then use something like our attendant console or a CTI app embedded in a CRM. So it's going to give us more flexibility as to how we deliver our voice calls to different endpoints. But that's the kind of next, from a tech stack or Microsoft contact center perspective, that's the next wave of technology that we think will become more and more prevalent. It's Azure Communication Services via the power model.
You think what's the just as a simple guess, what do you think the percentages of support? Because right now chat has been coming up as third, I think, because I think it was for calls, and I think it's emails as an example for Medium. Where do you think chat's going to sit now as you start to make chat super simple and the escalation process super simple, and the backend being something very simple as in Teams? What do you guys internally, do you guys have a guess on what that percentage is going to be addressed on chat now versus other mediums?
Yeah, well, I still think voice will always be the primary channel. I can't really put a number on the percentages, but I did actually hear something very interesting the other day that Gen Z are using more voice than chat, and it's the millennials that are using more chat. So I actually expected it to be kind of the other way around, but I think it's the millennials who prefer using chat rather than the Gen Z. I read something that it's the Gen Z prefer using voice. So it kind of goes
is Gen Z using voice potentially taking into account that they're okay talking to an AI, to a bot? Or do you think it's just do they like phone calls? Because I haven't met any, like Jordan, you seem pretty young, Jordan. I don't know how old you are, but are you a millennial or a Gen Z?
Well, I'm the same age as Oli, so I've just had a much easier life, I think.
No kidding. That's hilarious. All right. Well, yeah. So
give it a couple of years to Luware.
Yeah, give it a couple of years to Luware. I've got younger siblings who are kind of 17, 18, 19, 20, around that kind of age group. And I think, look, FaceTime is absolutely huge, and part of that is you're being, I won't get a phone call from my younger sisters and brothers. I'll get a FaceTime. That's typically how they communicate with people. I think it all comes down to that kind of comfortability of putting yourself on camera and speaking to people. That's typically what I'm seeing as part of that younger generation. I think I've read some of the data as well. The data sort of backs that up.
Okay. Interesting. All right, guys, I think we hit top of the hour. This has been super cool. I think we actually went over a little bit. I apologize for the timing there. I wasn't even watching. I'm just kind of having a good time chatting about, web chat's sort of near and dear to my heart. Brandon, you know this. Oli, you know this, right? We've talked at length about stuff like this. So, Brandon, why don't you take us out of this one, buddy? I always do this whole takeout thing.
Yeah. Well, episode 83, that's a wrap. Oli, Jordan, thank you for joining. Just so you know, I'm an AI bot. It's not really me.
I'm in another meeting.
That's how good things are. I'm going to invite Bailey back to the stage to wish everyone a happy weekend and to take us to the outro.
Thanks for joining us, guys. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.